Dear students, today let us take up energy resources and land resources. If we take up the energy resources, they can be of two types. One, that is the renewable resources, renewable energy resources, which include sun, wind, water, tides, and even biogas, because all these are available to us all the time and they are renewable. We can get them back again. So solar energy, electricity produced by windmills or using water, that is hydroelectricity, using the tidal force also can be converted into electricity, and even the biogas which we are generating from the vegetable waste and other waste what we get from the agricultural field and even from the cow dung and all that we are utilizing to produce the biogas, and that's also a renewable resource of energy. Okay, and these resources, these renewable energy resources are environmental friendly and they do not pollute our environment. Now the another type of the energy resources, non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources are like coal, petroleum gas and diesel, which we are extracting from the earth's crust. These are the reserves which have been formed in millions of years, and these are going to exhaust if we are extracting them without limit. So these resources which we are using to the maximum extent, when they burnt, they produce the poisonous gases like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, lead, sulfur dioxides, oxides of nitrogen, and even the unburnt hydrocarbons. All these are going to pollute our environment. Now let us take up another source of energy, that is nuclear energy we call, or atomic energy. A Kaiga atomic power station situated in Dharwad in Karnataka is able to give us 220 megawatt of energy, electricity. So it is used for generating the electricity. Let's look into the picture. So this is what the Kaiga atomic power station, which is providing the electricity without polluting the atmosphere. Now some facts about the energy resources let us take up. As we see here, in 1900, when world's population was 1.6 billion, the consumption of fossil fuel was 1 billion ton. But now it has changed, it has increased a lot. As per the 1998 record, when the human population reached up to 5.9 billion, the utilization of the fossil fuel, petroleum, diesel and all increased to 14 billion tons. So that shows how fast we are extracting these non-renewable resources of energy. Now let us take up the land resources. Land can be defined as a delineable area of the world's terrestrial surface encompassing all attributes of the biosphere. What does it mean? It is the area which is capable of providing us on this terrestrial surface, it is land surface, all the useful things which we can utilize, and it gives support to the whole biosphere. So that is how the land resources are very, very important, on which not only the humans, all other living organisms are dependent, which are especially terrestrial organisms. Land is not a commodity or property, but a community. This is what we had to try to understand. We should not take it as a piece of land which we can sell or which we can make use of as we want. right? Land is a community. So if we start thinking in this way, then we'll start respecting the land and will make use of the land in a proper way. According to Hindu mythology, land is taken as a goddess because of its benefits, which are limitless, which we cannot quantify. So that is rightly giving respect to the mother land. Then land makes up 20% of the earth's surface, which is covered by natural forests, grasslands, wetlands, agricultural lands, rural and urban settlements of the human beings. So all that together is contributing about 20% of the earth's surface, and that's the land which we have to conserve and protect. We depend on it for our food, agriculture, construction and dwelling, then roads, railway lines, industrialization, urbanization, whatnot. All our activities are on the land itself. So we are very much dependent on this land resource. Land is a resource of limitless uses, we can say. Now let us take up the other facts, related information about the land resource. Now what has happened is, because the human population has exploded, our number has increased. So as the population size has increased, it has resulted into putting more pressure on the land. So land resource is under high pressure because of increasing human population. Now let us take up land degradation. How our land is degraded. It simply means how the land is losing its fertility. Now there are three ways by which it happens: physical, chemical and biological. Let us take up the physical change which is happening to the soil or to the land, which is rendering it a degraded one. That is soil erosion, desertification, environmental pollution and improper use of natural resources. So all these are the physical factors, what we call. Soil erosion is taking place because we are deforesting, we are not growing the trees, we are leaving the barren land open, and we see that soil erosion is taking place. Then similarly desertification is also taking place because we are not properly utilizing the land surface area. We are going for deforestation, constructing the concrete buildings, not growing the plants and all. So much of the land which loses the topsoil becomes barren, and it leads to desertification where nothing can grow. And similarly, environmental pollution caused by the humans is also a physical kind of degradation which we are causing to the land and atmosphere. Then chemical. Let's see how the chemical degradation is taking place. It is by acidification, leaching, fertility and depletion. Acidification takes place when most of the water soluble minerals from the soil get dissolved into water and washed away from the soil. And similarly leaching and acidification, these two are related phenomena. First let us take up how the leaching is taking place. Leaching is the removal of useful minerals from the soil as they dissolve in water and go away. And similarly, when much of the nutrients are used up and removed from the soil, and if we are using the ammonia containing fertilizers, that leads to acidification, that is accumulation of more hydrogen ions in the soil. So that is called as acidification. And leaching is the removal of minerals which are water soluble and they are found in the topsoil. If these are removed, then it is called as leaching of the soil. And these two processes will be leading to depletion of the fertility. Now, biological degradation of the land is because of the reduction in total biomass of the carbon, decline in biodiversity of land. It simply means we are cutting the trees, we are deforesting the land, and because of deforestation, a lot of the carbon containing resource, that is the plants, we are losing, and it is also causing the habitat destruction, and because of that biodiversity is also being badly affected. Causes now. What are the causes of the land degradation? Intensive agriculture, that is one thing. Then growing same crop year after year. What happens is gradually the mineral content of the soil goes on declining, and after few crops grown for a few years time there continuously, the land becomes unfit for any further agriculture. Then loss of topsoil, as we have discussed before also, that also leads to degradation of the land. Then improper irrigation leading to salinization. Somewhere we have talked about this. Salinization, that is increasing salt content in the soil, that also degrades the land. Addition of untreated industrial waste to the soil, that is also adding up unwanted chemicals to the land, making it degraded. Then man-induced landslides, let us take up now. Landslide is also another phenomenon which can be defined as the transfer of material or land mass down the hill slopes, and that is taken as landslide. So landslide from mountains leads to destruction of human settlements at the foothills. Let's know some more information. Let us gather about this landslide. Now here in this picture you can see how the landslide is taking place. A large amount of the matter in the form of a rubble, soil, and the big pieces of the mountain, they just come down along the slope when there is a heavy rain, and they will be destroying the human settlements down there. And this side also the figure is showing how the land has simply shifted down, cracked, and is moving down. That's the landslide we call. In a diagrammatic way, if you look at here, so how the land is breaking and moving down is clearly shown here. So this is the scientific diagram to show how the land mass gets removed from the top of the mountain, and it slides down and enters into the area where human settlement may be there. Then causes of landslide, let us talk about it. First one, natural factors like undercutting of the banks by river, weathering and weakening of rock, heavy rainfall, seismic shocks, shock waves we can say, and absence of proper surface drainage and the additional weight. Let's slightly emphasize about these points. Cutting out the bank by a river means when the river flows, it will cut away some part of the mountain area, and slowly that encaving or cutting from the bottom increases, so that makes the part of the land on the top of the mountain slide downward, as because there is no support down there. And also by the weathering and breaking of the rocks and heavy rainfall, and whenever there is a seismic waves created, that is at the time of the earthquake, that also has very strong impact on the mountains and hills as such, which may break up, and that also results into the landslide. And another cause given is absence of proper surface drainage and additional weightage. Now when the heavy rain is there and the mass of soil mixed with water in the form of the mud is trickling down or flowing down with a speed, if this has to be properly channelized, proper drainage is there, so that it is not entering into the human habitation. If it is diverted somewhere to some other water body or something like that, or valley, then the landslide effect can be prevented. So that is not there. So that is one of the cause. And then anthropogenic factors, let us see, because of the human activities. Of course, deforestation, as we know, leads to the soil erosion, and that also is one of the cause of landslides. Then irrigation, improper land usage for agriculture, and then overgrazing and mining activities. All these activities, we see that they are going to cause harm to the structure of the land and the topsoil, and that's one of the reasons when these are destroyed. When it is heavy rain, naturally the land from the hills or the top regions of the mountains tends to slide down, as there are no more trees there. We have done the deforestation and the land gets sliding down and causing the landslides. Now, methods to face landslides. Construct retaining walls. That's one of the methods. When we construct huge walls at the foothills of the mountains, or we can say wherever there is a chance of slide, so we can have strong walls built there, so that the landslide will not have effect on our roads and our settlement area. Then provide surface drainage along the roads, so that along the roads, if we have a deep dug tunnels directed to some other place where it can be disposed of, so by that way also we can prevent the effect of landslide. And fills on the slopes. On the slopes of the mountain itself, if we have some pits where the trickling down mass can get accumulated or sink inside, so that can also be one way, having the fills on the slopes. And then changing water condition on the slope, diverting or rerouting the flowing debris. And these are the ways, because when the water is flowing down from the mountains, it carries along the sand, soil and dust. So what we have to do is reroute the flowing debris, so that the effect of landslide can be minimized. Displacement of topsoil by wind, water or ice is called as the soil erosion. So we are now talking about the soil erosion. Let's see what are the causes. We know what is soil erosion. Let's see the causes, which we have also discussed somewhere earlier. Overgrazing is one. When we make our cattle and sheep and goats overgraze, large number of these domestic animals, if we allow them to graze onto the grassland and the vegetation, these will be killed, removed. So that also is one type of deforestation we are doing, or clearing the grasses and the herbaceous vegetation. and that also leads to soil erosion. Then the wind, if wind is flowing at a higher speed, and that also takes away the topsoil and leading to soil erosion. Tillage, sometimes very deep ploughing we do in the agriculture land, and sometimes we leave it as it is, and that when dries up, a lot of soil which is brought onto the surface, that will be again carried away by the rainwater or the wind. Then continuous cropping also leads to soil erosion. Then fire, sometimes we are burning the leftover plants when we do the harvesting. That is, you have learnt about it as jhum culture or slash and burn culture. So by that way we are turning the remaining stems into the fine ash, and that also leads to soil erosion. Then urbanization, because we are cutting the trees, clearing the grounds and constructing the buildings, and definitely the loss of the forest cover leads to soil erosion. And another thing is mining. A large area of the land is taken for mining, and after mining the dugout land area is left open as it is, and that also leads to soil erosion. Now here you can see in the picture a patch of land showing the soil erosion which has taken place there, and nothing is growing on that region. Now the effects of soil erosion or the implications, let us see. First is the loss of soil fertility, then sedimentation in the rivers, streams and lakes spoils the water quality and also harms the aquatic organisms. Then land degradation takes place. Now in India, around 33% of the agricultural land has already lost 36% of its productivity, and that is because of the soil erosion. Silting in reservoirs and dams reduce the reduce or make the capacity of the water holding capacity of these reservoirs less. So that's also taking place because of the soil erosion, because that eroded soil is carried by the flowing water and rivers, and it will reach the reservoirs and dams, and silting takes place at the bottom, and that is how the storage capacity is affected. Now it also affects the percolation of water into the ground, because a hard surface, a barren land surface cannot allow more water to percolate in the ground. Then now let us talk about the soil conservation, how we can conserve the soil. It is nothing but preventing the soil erosion and protecting the fertility of the soil. We have to go for forestation, growing plants, carrying out afforestation activity wherever we find the barren land. Plant the trees afresh there. You can also shift some fertile soil from other places to there and grow plants over there. And wherever the area is erosion prone, we should go on making the afforestation there, and then adopt counter cultivation. It reduces soil erosion by 50%. Let us see what is counter cultivation. The picture is coming up there. We see here that the crop is grown in form of the strips with gaps in between along the slope, and this kind of the cultivation will definitely reduce the removal of the soil or soil erosion. And this kind of agriculture practice has to be done to reduce the soil erosion. It's called as counter cultivation. Then protect the meadows and forest cover. Meadows are the areas where there's a lot of grass and the herbaceous plants growing over there, where we take our cattle and sheep and goats for grazing. So these meadows have to be protected. They should not be overgrazed, and also the forest cover has to be protected. Construct bunds. Let us see what are these bunds. Bunds are constructed in order to prevent the effect of the flooding and destruction to the agricultural crop on the sides of the rivers, lakes and ponds. It is by constructing a barrier between the water body and the land area just nearby, so that even if it floods, the devastating effect will not be seen. And here another picture shows you the bund, the elevated wall-like structure built continuously along the seashore here, and a road is also made on that, so that less amount of the saline water gets collected in the backwater area, and we see that the flooding will not have any bad effect, and we can also prevent the salinization of the soil by using these bunds. And good agriculture practice we have to follow, keeping in mind all those rules and regulations, the techniques and methods, to see that we are preventing soil erosion, we are preventing salinization of the soil or the land, preventing the waterlogging. So if you keep in mind all these and properly bring about the agricultural practice scientifically, then it will be of more help to us. Protective walls to prevent bank erosion. Walls can be built again along the banks of the huge rivers, so that we can prevent the erosion of the soil along the banks of the river. Then organic farming is the best way of agriculture practice, where we are not using any chemicals, not using the fertilizers or the ammonia containing fertilizers and other chemicals. We are here using all the natural methods, natural biodegradable fertilizers we are using, and growing in a natural way using the even biological control of the pests and all, and that is the best way to have the better agriculture and safe environment. Then crop rotation is basically employed in most of the places, where after one crop, like for example cereal crops we have grown, and then we will grow some leguminous plants there, because when the leguminous crop you develop there, they make the soil rich in nitrates, and again after harvesting that leguminous plants crop, we can again go for the other plants, other cereals we can grow there. So in this way, crop rotation is also one of the best method. And then mulching. Mulching is a method by which we are trying to reduce the loss of moisture from the soil in the agriculture field on either sides of the plants which we have grown there, and also try to reduce the growth of the weeds. Strip cropping is again growing the agriculture crops in different strips, alternating one type of crop plant in one strip and another type of crop plant in another strip. So by that way we can improvise our agriculture product and reduce the burden on the land resources. Then terrace cropping, that is all along the mountain slopes. We can have steps cut down, and on these steps we can grow the crops, so that it prevents the soil erosion also, and the crop of our interest can be grown along the hillside, like mainly the tea and coffee plantation is famous uh, along the hilly regions where we are using the terrace cropping, and it also prevents the landslides. Now let us take up some of the pictures. Here these two pictures what you are seeing now, showing the mulching. One, the arrow is pointing now, is the mulching by using dry grasses or straw covering the soil around the area where you have grown the plant of our interest or agriculture purpose, so that the loss of moisture from the soil can be prevented, and helps the plants to grow better. But it has got some drawbacks, like this is biodegradable, and after some time it becomes degraded, decomposed, and again we have to go for another layer of dry straw. And one more drawback is this kind of mulching allow the growth of lot of insects over there, and worms, lugs and all. Slugs may be inhabiting there, or some insects which may cause damage to our plantation there. So another way of mulching is using a mulching paper or a kind of plastic which is spreaded on the surface of the soil, which has got the holes through which we are planting the plants or sowing the seeds of the interest, whatever plantation we need to have, and remaining part of the soil is completely covered. And it's a good method because it not only prevent the loss of moisture, it reflects the light from the mulching paper onto the growing plants, providing more sunlight for the photosynthesis and all, and help in growth of the plant. And also it will not allow the weeds to grow. So this is what the mulching is all about, and you might have seen this in your area in agriculture lands. This is now very well used for better agriculture. Now this diagram which has come up now is a picture taken from the hilly region where the slope of the hill is converted into the terrace farming, and this is how the tea and coffee plantation is done. We are double benefiting. We are getting the product of our interest, as well as we are preventing soil erosion as well as landsliding by this method of terrace cropping. Now let's talk about the desertification. As you can see on the slide, the desert has appeared now. How this desert is forming? Of course, the desert what we see in Saudi Arabia is the desert which has appeared from the sea when the water has receded down and the land surface has risen up, which is full of the sand. But desertification also has taken place in other areas where once upon a time there was lush green forest, and that is what we are talking about now, desertification, because of the human activities, cutting down the trees, deforestation, leaving the land barren and open, even destroying the land by mining and all. And these all kind of activities result into desertification. Let's look into some meaning of desertification. Like it is irreversible change that declines the biological potential of the land. Land is no more able to produce anything, grow anything there. Then that means the land loses its productivity and becomes completely barren. Thus, it is a process of land degradation, and that land degradation is due to dry and hot climate as well as the human activities. Land acquiring the qualities of desert is called as desertification, and that's about another definition given by Aubrey in 1949. In fact, this was the scientist who used the term first time as desertification. Due to human activities, around 6,000 square kilometers land has become now desert, and it is happening every year. This is the data of every year the land getting changed into a desert. So it's a serious matter to think about, and very, very necessary thing is to prevent desertification. And all this is mainly due to anthropogenic activities. Now let us take up the causes, which can also be classified into two types, anthropogenic and the natural ones. Now, deforestation and overgrazing, then intensive agriculture and extensive use of pesticides and fertilizers, mining operation, and soil erosion. All these are due to the human activities. We call these causes as the anthropogenic causes, leading to degradation of the land. Then other causes are low precipitation, means very less rainfall, very high temperature, increasing temperature, atmospheric temperature, low humidity, strong and dry winds, which are again because of the increasing temperature and dryness on the land. Then intensive evaporation from the soil. So all these are because of the climatic factors. These things lead to the degradation of the land. Now let's take up the effects of the desertification. Now, according to some data, like around 135 million people in Africa, India and South America are affected because of the desertification. It also leads to biodiversity, of course, because we are making the land a desert by clearing the forest cover, destroying the habitat of the wild animals. So definitely both the wild varieties of the plants and animals are becoming less and less and becoming extinct. So loss of biodiversity is very well there as an effect of desertification. Decline in world food production also has taken place because as we see, more and more land is getting barren where we cannot have the agricultural activities. Definitely the area available for agriculture will be decreasing day by day, year after year, and that's why the food production also is gradually declining. And it's also leading to the climate change. Our Earth's climate is becoming hotter and hotter because of all these degradations of the land. Efforts to face the problems of desertification. Let us now take up what efforts we can make in order to deal with the problems of desertification. Now, internationally, some conferences have been conducted where people, intellectuals from various countries, environmentalists, scientists, economists have gathered to talk about and discuss over these problems and find out the solutions. And the International Conference on Desertification was held in 1977 at Nairobi. Similarly, Earth Summit organized at Brazil's own place, Rio, in 1992. These are the efforts to think about and plan to make sure that we are not allowing further degradation of our land, not allowing any more land area to become a desert. The conversion of natural resources by sustainable utilization of land resources is one of the effort what we should have. We should conserve the natural resources, use them in a very wise way, in a sustainable manner. Do not over exploit, and that is the word, over exploitation. What we are doing is leading to all kind of the destruction to the environment, so that we have to avoid and make use of the natural resources in a much sustainable way. Conservation of the natural resources is everyone's duty, everyone's job it is. Let's see what every individual can do to conserve the resources. There are some listed points here. Let's go through them. The first one is use the water resources judiciously. Even if we are taking the water for drinking, how much we can drink, that much only we have to take. Do not just waste. Drink 2-3 sips and just throw the water. That's also not good. And whenever we are brushing, we are just keeping the tap on and the water is being wasted there. And using the shower and spending more time enjoying over there, so you are making more and more water getting lost, wasted. So these things we have to avoid and use the water wisely, economically, so that the water resource can be saved for the future. Do not pollute rivers, seas and other reservoirs. If we are going to the rivers and we are dumping the waste over there, polluting the rivers, polluting the seas and reservoirs, will definitely lead to the degradation of the water resources. Use biofertilizers and biomedicines. Biofertilizers, which are naturally available fertilizers, which are the decomposing material we can use as the fertilizer in the agriculture field, like cow dung decomposed. We can have a compost and allow the kitchen waste and other waste, agricultural waste, grasses, dried leaves and all undergo the decomposition, and that what forms the compost containing a lot of the organic compounds, and such kind of biofertilizers we have to use in our agriculture fields. And also the medicines derived from the plants, like some of the farmers are using neem and so many other 4 or 5 different types of plants. Their leaves they are collecting and extracting the liquid from these leaves, and that they are spraying onto their agriculture field, onto the plants, agriculture plants, so that the diseases to the plants as well as the insects, which are the pests of the agriculture field, they can be reduced or killed. So in this way, using the biofertilizers and biomedicines will be the right way to support the natural resources. Then limit the size of your family. That's also very important, because increase in the population, human population, is one of the main cause for the demand in demand of the food, increasing agriculture, demand for the construction of new buildings, houses, more and more need of the minerals, metals and all. So we go on extracting all these things and utilizing the resources limitlessly. So therefore, first we have to limit our family, so everything will be limited. So as you have studied in biology, that hum do hamare do, the slogan given for family planning, that we have to follow and see that our population do not increase beyond a limit. Use eco-friendly products, paper and cotton bags for carrying the things. And if you want to go anywhere, make use of bicycles. or if the distance is very near, go by walk. Walking is a good exercise. And if we are using the cars, only when it is necessary, essential, and that to use the car which is equipped with the LPG gas, that is liquid petroleum gas kit, which is less harmful, which is not polluting the atmosphere. Do not use animal products like fur coats, that is the outer covering of the animals, mammals for example, and then that is the, sometimes we make use of the animal's skin or hide in making our bags, making the covers of the seats on the bikes, and for so many other decorative purposes also. We make use of the animal skin, and that is not good. That is causing damage to our wildlife reserve, as well as leading to the degradation of the environmental resources. Similarly, silk saris we should avoid as long as possible, because again here we are exploiting the silk worms, and of course it has both benefits as well as drawbacks. We are making a fabric available to us, but its use also has to be reduced. Then ivory made up of the elephant teeth, that is strictly we have to avoid. Now I think it is a little bit under control, but in a few decades ago, if you see, ivory was very popular, which is white colored, very strong material, of which the statues in the temples, or the small ornaments, then other decorative pieces were carved and made. And what this ivory is, it is mainly from the tusks of the elephant, and for that purpose the elephants are harmed. Either elephants are killed to take out the tusks, or they are badly injured cutting and taking out the tusks, and due to infection they used to die out. So like this, the elephant population has badly hit because of the ivory products. So we should avoid all the ivory products. And then animal hides we should not use at all. Earlier days it was kind of a royal thing, or proud one used to feel if he has a preserved head of a tiger or a deer on the wall, and the hide or the skin of the animal hanging down on the wall, or making it as a covering of the beddings or sofa, like that. So such kind of things we had to surely avoid, and this kind of killing of the wild animals for these unnecessary purposes has caused a lot of damage to the biodiversity. Minimize use of the use and throw products. Use and throw products, which are mainly made up of plastics, which we use, and then as because once it is used, it is of no use, we are throwing. Like it may be the syringes, it may be some other plastic packages. Once we use it, we throw it. It may be the materials such as used in education field, like markers and all, which are use and throw type. Once we use and throw, so this is increasing the solid waste and causing damage to the land resources. So we have to see that use and throw products should not be used much. Rather we should go for the reusable things. Then use public transport. Whenever we want to go somewhere, it is better that go by the public transport. Public transport means the government vehicles, buses or trains, so that we are not using our cars or bikes where we need to burn a lot of petrol for a few number of members, 2-3 people may be sitting, and a lot of the natural resource, the petroleum or diesel we are using there, burning it, not only polluting the atmosphere, also over exploiting the resource. So it's better to go with the public transport. Use plastic doors instead of wooden ones. Plastic actually is dangerous for the environment, but the plastic which is very thick and which can be used as some kind of material which we can use like furniture or the doors of the walls, or we can make use of this plastic instead of the wooden doors, for which we have to cut the timber, cut the trees, and instead of the using metals over there, so reduce the metal extraction. So in this way, it is one of the way how we can avoid the over exploitation of natural resources. Then practice proper waste disposal. That is very, very important. Waste disposal includes the waste metals, glasses, plastics, and other non-biodegradable things which we dump onto the land, and also the biodegradable things, garbage we are dumping onto the land, which which invites the bacterial growth there and spreads the diseases, and as well as the non-biodegradable waste is making the soil deteriorated by their chemicals, by their oxides, and when they undergo oxidation and get converted into some other compounds, and gradually they mix up with the soil and making it barren. And even plastic, if it is there, it cannot be degraded. Some thin metal things and all undergo corrosion and they get slowly degraded, but plastic remains in the soil, and when it gets buried into the soil, it will not allow the seeds to germinate. So that is how the waste, solid waste which is produced from the households has to be properly disposed of. Then use solar lights and CFL lights, and these are the lights which utilize less amount of energy. Solar lights are quite good. Solar energy is available to us in plenty, and its resource is like infinite. So as long as it is possible, using the solar panels on the roofs of the houses, and through that, if we are getting the electricity, we are burning our bulbs, lights, and other electric equipment, that is well and good. And the CFL lights which are available now can also help in reducing the usage of electricity. Then use refill packs. That's what I was telling you when we talked about, when I just told you about the use and throw like things. So refilling packs which can be used again and again, and refilling packs are cheaper also. Like for example, there are many examples to quote. If we have the markers, right, using the refilling inks, the same marker again and again, that is one thing. And if you have the hand wash, for example, one hand wash bottle you have, then buy a refilling bag which is available and which is cheaper also, and when it finishes, then fill that bottle and again use it. So like this, there are so many ways where we are not increasing the solid waste. Whatever is there, we are using it by refilling it, by reusing it, not throwing it out after the usage. Now lastly, let us take up the equitable use of resources. Resources which is utilized by the human beings has not been in a proper equation. Some people are using it too much, some people are not having access to it, and for some people it is available in very little quantities. So this inequality is causing much destruction to our natural resources. Let's take up some of the facts here. Rich countries use more natural resources than poor countries. To cite an example, citizens of developed countries, if we take up, the energy they are utilizing, the raw material they are utilizing, in 6 months, okay, that is equal to the need of the citizens in developing countries for the whole lifetime. One person, how much energy and raw material he needs to sustain his life, complete lifetime, that much energy and raw material, the natural resource, is just utilized or exhausted by a citizen who is residing in developed countries just within 6 months. So this is what about the inequality in utilization of the resources. So we should go for equity, that is equitable use, equal use of the natural resources. Similarly, rich people use more resources than the poor or underprivileged ones. In Western countries, per capita consumption of the paper and steel, if you take up, paper about 264 pounds and the steel about 990 pounds is what the consumption of paper and steel, compared to the South Asian region over here in India and the countries around. It is very less. Like paper, we are using about 18 pounds per capita, means per person, and 99 pounds, that is just 10% of what the Western country people are using per capita. So that is the steel, 99 pounds used by the people in Asian region. This is clear-cut data which shows us how there is inequitable use. So we have to move on to equitable use now. So the moral of story is that the people who have greater access to the resources must use them judiciously so that resources are available equally to all of us, and the resources will be further passed on to the next generation. That means the future generation is also will be, or the future generation will also be able to enjoy, able to use this natural resource. And that we have to keep in mind, that human population is going to exist on this planet Earth further for many more, maybe millions of years, we don't know. So if we overexploit and cause decline in the natural resources to a greater extent now, then it will not be available for our future generation. That is going to suffer a lot. So that means ultimately what comes in our mind is the wise and economical use of the natural resources. Sustainable way of utilization is the only means to conserve, protect and control our natural resources and have a healthy atmosphere around and the healthy life. So with this we conclude this topic. We'll take up the third unit in our next discussions.